Hi, I'm Pastor Mark, and I'm the pastor of Resurrection Life Church. Thanks so much for tuning in to our first episode of Encouragement Within an Epidemic. Trying to sort through how to best encourage our folks during this time, thought, how can we process through our fear? Fear is certainly on the rise as we deal with all of these different things during this epidemic. Thought, well, what is the root of our fear? How do we cope with our fear? And how can we encourage you as we cope with our fear? I've had to face fear over the last couple weeks. On Palm Sunday, for example, as we were watching the sermon, all of a sudden it went from point one to the conclusion. Half my sermon I neglected to send to our video editor. This is what it looked like. Would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. Now, I want to conclude this morning by focusing on building on this concept of Jesus flipping over tables. And so, as you can imagine, I was a little discouraged when half the sermon, points 2 and 3, which I spent a lot of time working on, suddenly disappeared. These are the things that I have nightmares about, and so was able to survive that one. On Easter morning, as we're watching with our family again, which is awkward enough to watch yourself on TV, but we weren't there yet. It was just the opening screen, and anticipating our big service. And all of a sudden, the screen said, "Your live stream has ended 60 seconds ago." Thinking, wait, what is happening here? So we had a software crash, and our video editor was amazing. He sent out a new link, and we pushed that link out as quickly as we could to everybody we knew, and fortunately everything was good by about 10:10. So we were 10 minutes late, fashionably late, and only lost about 10 years of my life. In order to really encourage you during this time, I wanted to connect with a friend named Denny. He's a psychologist, and I'll introduce him more properly in a moment, but I wanted to figure out, again, how can we get a professional speak into this? We know the Bible has plenty to say about do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. But how do we deal with this from more of a psychological perspective? Now, Ryan is a psychologist, he's also a faithful Christian, he's a dear friend, and he also is a preacher, and he's a very good preacher at that. And so I'm excited to have this time with him. So enjoy this interview that we had together between myself and Ryan. Here we go. Well, a warm welcome, friend. And it's a pleasure of mine to introduce Denny. Ryan is a licensed psychologist. He works at 180 Counseling in Holly Springs. And he's like I said, a dear friend, married to Carolyn. He's a father of Luke. And we've gotten to know each other quite a bit over the last little bit. And I'm just so privileged that he's able to help us out a little bit, understand a little bit more of the nature of fear. And Ryan comes and covers for me from time to time in terms of preaching. So he's also an excellent preacher, and also reminds me that I need to up my game every time he comes to preach. So a warm welcome, friend, and I look forward to this.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm really happy to be with you. I think your people are always happy to see you come through the door when you return, so
okay.
Know that.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, hey, this is an episode to encourage people who is struggling with fear. And I want to ask you, we've got prepared here 3 questions. And the first question is, some people during this pandemic are just straight up fearful. And there's people that are more fearful than others. And so times like this can just increase the fear of people who already kind of struggle with fear. And so I wanted to ask you, why do we have fears? And what is the root of our fear?
It's a really, really good question. These are really good questions that you're going to be asking me today, and I hope I can live up to them with my answers. But fear is human. We're human beings, and there are only a few root fears, actually. There's fear of being unlovable, fear of being alone, fear of dying, fear of being out of control. These are some core fears that human beings have. But times like this in a pandemic, it really presses our fears of being out of control, fears of uncertainty. And so trauma is partly defined by enduring something really scary or difficult and feeling helpless to stop it. And so what we're really going through is a bit of a worldwide traumatic experience to varying degrees, because we're all helpless to stop this. We're doing our best, to cope with it. We have fear because we're not in control of things that are scary and of things that cause us pain and grief and loss and suffering. And so because we're human beings, because we have limited capacity to control things, and bad things happen to us. And it's really scary and hard and painful, and we don't want it to happen again. And when it might, we get really scared that it could. So I think we're afraid because we're human, because we don't have control, and we don't like pain.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Very helpful. Thank you for that. So for those of us who are struggling with fear and the pain, the fear of pain and all that, we could say things we don't mean right now. We could say some pretty hurtful things. We could read things on Facebook and say, wow, I can't believe that person said that. So the question is, what are some helpful coping mechanisms to deal with our fears? And on the flip side, if we're a recipient of fear from others, how do we cope with them?
Great questions. I think in terms of coping with it ourselves, first of all, just accepting that to be afraid is human. It's okay. A lot of us like to judge our fears and judge our feelings and what's wrong with me and why am I so afraid? But just taking away that layer of judgment can be really helpful, and just acknowledging, accepting it's okay to be afraid. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You're not a good Christian. It's because you're human. But as a believer, then what we do with that fear is important. And I just very practically encourage people to search the scripture for what it says about fear. For all the things that scripture is vague about, fear is not one of them. Worry, anxiety, it's very clear about that and how we should handle that and what it helps to do. And so searching scripture and putting our hearts in alignment with that as much as possible, asking the Lord to line up our hearts with his word and the truth of it there as much as possible. And also sharing our fears with other people. The more we hold them in, kind of the more they grow inside and percolate within us. But just sharing, I'm really scared about this or that, and how are you feeling about it, and being open about it can be really helpful. Also finding something in your daily life that you can control. For me, it's my morning coffee. That I put the cup in a certain place and I prepare it the certain way, the right way. And it's really small, but it's something that I can feel in control of, empowered, to do each day, no matter what. And it's amazing how helpful that can be.
That's interesting.
Also, gratitude, just being very, very grateful. Gratitude and fear don't really mesh well together. Can't really be grateful in your heart and terrified at the same time. And so it can be really a good antidote to fear to remember what you're grateful for. Now, the fearful mind's going to say, yeah, maybe you're grateful for those things, but look at all the bad that's going on, or you might lose them. Well, even though I'm afraid, I'm still grateful right now for fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Even though I might get sick tomorrow with a cold, right now I'm really grateful for my health, that I can work and take care of my family,
Yeah.
So just not allowing the fears to cancel out the gratitude. Now, when other people are pushing their fear at us, or their anxiety or their irritability at us, fear makes us really irritable sometimes. One of the best things that I recommend is validating that. Wow, you seem really nervous. You seem really anxious right now. You seem really afraid. How can I help you? What's going on for you? What are you thinking? Kind of instead of, don't talk to me like that, it's like, wow, that's really not you. Are you feeling anxious, nervous? What's going on inside of you? Kind of get at that deeper level, to invite a deeper conversation. And also, how can I pray with you? How can I pray about your fear? And praying with them directly about their fears. Lord, I know that this person is afraid of this or that. Thank you for being with them through that and inside of that. And just really calling the fear out.
Yeah.
Addressing it directly.
Very good. Very good. So not sideswiping it, dealing with it, using the power of empathy. Right. Trying to name the feeling, and not allow things to be swept under the rug. But that's hard, right? That takes a tremendous amount of courage sometimes, because sometimes it's easier just to leave it, dismiss it. But to be assertive in that is very helpful. Great. Well, thanks, Ryan. One more thing. What is one word of encouragement that you can provide for those who are living in fear right now?
Well, I can offer what helps me, and it helps me to remember that God is the same always, no matter what. He does not change. His love, His compassion, the promises of His word are always the same, no matter what's going on in my life or the world. And so just trusting in that steady anchor, that true north that's always there for me is very, very helpful. No matter what things look like, He remains the same. Also, for me, there's a lot of peace that comes in just surrendering my life to Him. And for me, that means it's all His. Everything that I do and say, everywhere that I go, as long as I live and until I'm not living anymore, it's all in His hands. And I will live as long as He says, and not a moment longer, and not a moment shorter. And so just giving all of that to Him. Now, I want to be in control of everything. My anxiety makes me, but the more I can just be surrendered and let Him have it and live at His pleasure, the more peace I have. Those help me.
That's a powerful line. Live at His pleasure. That's the words from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not be in want. Is a reminder of the fact that that the Lord is in control. He is drawing us through this journey, and to take comfort and pleasure in this personal connection that we have with God during this time as our shepherd, drawing us through it with our fears, with our anxieties, and perhaps even for some, drawing us through the valley of the shadow of death itself.
Right.
These are scary times indeed. And so, brother, thank you so much for your words of encouragement.
To you.
Yeah, man. And I hope to enjoy a lunch with you at a restaurant at some point in the near future.
Person. IRL, in real life.
Yeah, exactly, in real life, man. But for this virtual experience, man, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you. Love you as a brother. And strength and encouragement to you as well as you continue to work through and with people, during this pandemic as well. So strength to you, and we'll be praying for you.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and love you too, and love your family. Thanks, you.
Man. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that was helpful for you. Tune in next week as I interview Chloe. She's an amazing, inspirational 9-year-old girl, cancer survivor, and still fighting this battle. And so I can't wait for her to speak into our situation and encourage you some more during this epidemic. Stay safe, stay healthy, be encouraged. The Lord is in this, and He knows what He's doing. God bless. I hope that worked.